Tonight, 4 families at the coast are mourning the death of their loved ones after an accident at the Likoni Ferry Channel. And with 36 days to the general election, we're asking the questions that a lot of Kenyans are grappling with in their minds after the recent party primaries sparked sporadic chaos reminiscent of the 2007 post-election violence. We will be speaking with Dr. Frank Njenga to understand what is going on in our society. Plus, we will be on the campaign trail and tell you where the presidential hopefuls were camped looking for that all-important vote. Well, this is Saturday Night Live, and these are the highlights. Four die at Ferry Channel as truck sweeps into pedestrians. Raila rejects Kibaki police appointments. Presidential hopefuls canvass for votes across the country.
Kanisa imeungua. Ikasema asante sio neno.
And looking back, did the post-election violence teach us anything? Many thanks for joining us. I'm Linda Ogutu. Our coverage tonight starts on a sad note with the news that at least 4 people died and scores injured after a driver of lorry lost control of the vehicle and rammed into a ferry at the Likoni Channel in Mombasa. The loaded trailer is said to have veered off the toll booth before scuttling down the ramp and crashing into pedestrians who had already boarded the ferry. Our senior coast reporter Ferdinando Mondi now brings us this tragic story from Mombasa. We would like to warn you that some of the footage in the story is disturbing.
Death, blood, tears. The aftermath of an early morning incident at the Likoni Channel in Mombasa when a truck with a loaded 40-foot container lost control at the toll booth and crashed into a parked ferry.
Mpaka watu wote wakawa wanapiga kelele, jamani yo yateremka yo, jamani yateremka, kawa kuna tension ya juu na ile lori inateremka moja kwa moja.
At that time the ferry was loading vehicles, and in the process it hit quite a number of pedestrians.
3 women died on the spot while another succumbed to injuries while undergoing treatment. The accident scene painted a picture of panic and confusion as relatives and well-wishers evacuated the injured from the scene to various hospitals. At the Coast General Hospital, X-rays show fractured bones. Some, like Frederick Odongo, sustained injuries from the ensuing stampede in the ferry.
Mimi nilikuwa katikati yao, nikaumia mguu, lakini wale walikuwa mbele yenye lori ilipata wote walikufa.
Official figures from the Provincial Director of Medical Services placed the injured at 13 in Coast General Hospital, suffering fractures, with 1 in intensive care. 13 others were admitted in Likoni District Hospital, 8 in Aga Khan and 3 in Pandya. Kenya Ferry said 5 others were in Navy, Savannah and Nyali Children's Hospitals. As news of the accident spread, so did anxiety among friends and relatives who use the service daily. We found this woman at nerve's end in hospital looking for her husband whose phone had gone silent.
Alitoka asubuhi, alikuwa anaenda job. Then asubuhi akanitumia text nimpigie agent. So najaribu kupigia hiyo namba ingine, nimemtafuta. Nimeenda kazini kwake simpati, natafuta watu wanafanya kazi nao siwapati, so ndo nimekuja kumtafuta huko Makadara.
The lorry driver was arrested as investigations continue. The management is looking into the possibility that pedestrians could have disregarded regulations and walked on the path of the vehicles, hence the fatalities.
Maybe the people on the path of the truck. That means they are walking on the road. Yet we have a walking path for pedestrians. So if they were on the walking path of the pedestrians, we will not also experience such a situation.
Barely 1 hour after the crash, users resumed to breaking the rules with abandon. While disembarking from the ferry, pedestrians disregard the walkway reserved for them, preferring instead to hurry up the motor vehicle ramps, crisscrossing the path of waiting trucks. Trucks parked just like the one which lost control and led to the loss of lives only hours ago. The Transport Ministry is now suggesting stringent laws to deal with errant ferry users.
Ni hatari kubwa, na tumesema kwamba tutawapatia ferry services wachukue sheria za uzito za watu ambao watakuwa wanakeuka sheria na kuhatarisha maisha ya watu.
Joho also indicated that Kenya Ferry's insurer had been contacted to help with the hospital bills of the injured and promised further assistance for the bereaved. The ill-fated lorry was sunk in the channel to allow normal service to resume. Investigations will reveal exactly who or what was culpable in today's incident. Overall, Kenya Ferry is asking all users to be extra vigilant and disciplined while using the services because of the myriad risks involved. Ferdinand Omondi, KTN, Likoni Channel, Mombasa.
Our condolences to the families who lost loved ones. Now, Prime Minister Raila Odinga has rejected President Kibaki's appointment of 2 deputies of Inspector General of Police and CID Director. The PM has termed the move as unconstitutional, and as Sophia Wanuna reports, the appointments were premature as consultations between the 2 principals had not been concluded.
It is slightly over a month to the general election, and an issue of concern that is yet to be addressed is the gap in the top leadership of the police service. Following yesterday's appointment of Grace Kaindi as Deputy Inspector General of Police, Samuel Arachi as Deputy Inspector General Administration Police, and Ndegwa Muhoro as Director of CID by President Mwai Kibaki, Prime Minister Raila Odinga has today rejected the appointments, saying an agreement had not been reached between him and Kibaki. In a statement, Raila said he had raised serious objections over the 3 names that were presented to him and that consultations had not been concluded. The PM also said that he expressed reservations on the integrity of the appointees, which needs to be unquestionable given the powerful role of the police in every aspect of the nation's life, including the upcoming elections. During the interviews for the positions conducted last year by the National Police Service Commission, various issues were raised on the alleged unsuitability of the candidates for the positions they were seeking.
When we talk about bullets, we have 2 slum areas. There's Nyalenda and there's Obunga. There were so many firearms that time. Why do people just want to narrow it down to the police firearms? Where is the proof? Please bring it on board so that we can tackle it.
Amani Coalition's running mate candidates Jeremiah Kioni and Justice Minister Eugene Wamalwa criticized Raila's move.
Nimeshangazwa sana wakati Kenya inasherekea Mheshimiwa Mwai Kibaki kumtunukia heshima Grace Kaindi, mama ambaye amehudumia taifa hili kwa miaka na kwa kujitolea awe Deputy Inspector General. Prime Minister amesema hakubali hiyo appointment na anakataa. Watu wa Baringo, munasema mama Grace Kaindi apewe nafasi ama sipewe nafasi?
Speaking to KTN on phone, National Police Service Commission Johnston Kavuluri said that his commission was disappointed that the 2 principals were yet to settle on the individuals that would serve in the 3 key security offices. He urged them to reach an agreement to ensure Kenya's security safeguarded in the lead-up, during and after the general election. The National Police Service Commission shortlisted 3 candidates for each of the positions, and therefore the President and the PM are expected to resume consultations and perhaps consider the other names that were forwarded to them. Sophia Wanuna, KTN.
And that is a story that we're definitely keeping an eye on for you. Now, as the curtains came down on the submissions to the IEBC Disputes Tribunal, Immigration Minister Otieno Kajwang had a hard time trying to defend his nomination as Homa Bay ODM senatorial seat aspirant. A voter from the county filed a petition challenging the suitability of Kajwang, claiming the Immigration Minister was unfit and failed the leadership and integrity test owing to a case in which he was stripped of his license as an advocate. In his defense, Kajwang said he was reinstated as an advocate. Samogina with the drama at the nomination hearings.
Immigration Minister Otieno Kajwang was at pains to defend his nomination for the Homa Bay senatorial seat before the IEBC Dispute Resolution Tribunal. Kajwang's candidature, challenged by a voter who claims he is not fit to lead given a case where Kajwang was struck off from the Law Society of Kenya advocate's role, thereby failing the integrity test.
That the interested party is an unqualified person.
Honorable Kajwang?
Yes. Because he has been struck off the role of advocate and is confirmed in the LSK communication that we have annexed in the
for having been struck.
In the face of adversity, the outgoing Mbita MP put up a spirited defense to secure his position.
Sometimes integrity is not defined. If I'm accused of robbery, or if I'm accused of sleeping with somebody's wife, it might be integrity issue. So the issue of integrity must be defined in law, because it is not a biblical issue. It is not a Quran issue.
But to underline the magnitude of the flawed party primaries, an aspirant from Kuria West on an ODM ticket epitomized the product of chaos that marred the nomination exercise in Nyanza region. Muitangi Maria had a tale that saddened the whole court session.
One of my opponents was shot dead. Later on 16, one day to nomination, I was attacked. I wonder how ODM issued the certificate to the late wife to my opponent.
But after stating his case, it was not all gloomy at last. Ngimeria was awarded the ODM ticket to vie in Kuria West constituency. In a twist, former Permanent Secretary James Nikal treated the court session to an amusing drama, not knowing how he was awarded the nomination certificate, yet no candidate was announced winner in the contest.
What's your name?
James Nikal.
Were you declared the winner?
I was given the certificate, sir.
So you are not declared the winner?
Because, Your Honor, the election was disrupted as has been indicated.
Other aspirants got a reprieve before the tribunal. Richard Kavemba, the Wiper Nairobi gubernatorial seat aspirant, was cleared to contest for the seat. Initially, Kavemba had been locked out given the CORD coalition fielding Evans Kidero as the governor candidate in Nairobi.
Do you want to vie still?
Yes, sir.
Then it is considered. We move on.
Thank you, sir.
Is that Mr. Mogaka? Is that the position?
That's all right.
The candidate is back on the list?
Yes, we will.
Very well. Thank you very
And
much.
my certificate will be issued.
The certificate will be issued, yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
The IEBC Dispute Resolution Tribunal saw a surge in cases filed requiring arbitration from 112 to nearly 200 cases. Given the magnitude of the work, the tribunal will now issue its verdict on the cases arising from the party primaries Monday. Samogina, KTN.
And now to the campaign trail, where the CORD Alliance was in William Ruto's backyard, combing Uasin Gishu County for votes. They held 3 rallies in different towns before converging on Eldoret 64 Stadium, where they accused the Jubilee Alliance of using the local administration to rally voter support for the March 4th election. A North Rift reporter, Mercy Kandie, accompanied the CORD team as they traversed the county and filed the following report.
The CORD Alliance set foot in Eldoret town and its environs. The alliance now claims that there is a silent reorganization of provincial administrators to campaign for Jubilee.
Nimepata habari kwamba wengine wenye mamlaka, public officers wengine wanaanza kuambia, ikiwa ni DC ambaye anatoka hapa Tarbo na ako Mwingi, wanataka aje hapa akampenia Jubilee.
The alliance speaking at the 64 Stadium in Eldoret town, led by Prime Minister Raila Odinga, the flag bearer, Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, and Ford Kenyan leader Moses Wetangula, say that their coalition is comprised of the most experienced leaders with international acceptance, hitting out at the Jubilee Alliance.
Alafu mara nyingine nimesikia mkisema ati achisha wendikitio. Sio, manake nyinyi ni watu ambaye mnakisema mnasema. Mlinipigia kura kwa fujo kabisa 2007. Kura hapa kwenu ilinyesha kama mvua.
Kama sisi sote tumedanganywa. Kweli Ruto, yeye ndiye mwanaume anaweza wale watu wameshinda wale wengine? Ha? Mimi nawaambia Uhuru akishinda serikali leo, wahape leo, kazi ya Ruto itakwisha siku hiyo.
The three coalition leaders first split and took code alliance to various parts of Uasin Gishu before converging at 64 Stadium in Eldoret, telling its residents of how it would benefit from a code government.
Kuanzia Juni mwaka hii, kila mzee ambaye amehitimu umri ya miaka 65 na zaidi atapata hiyo rupurupu kila mwezi.
Raila said he had no issue with leaders in Rift Valley who abandoned him and instead said he would bank on support from locals. He later met Kalenjin elders at a hotel in Eldoret.
The Code Alliance winds its political tour of the Uasin Gishu County, selling its policies to residents and trying to convince them, a region that is known to lean towards the Jubilee Alliance, that they, Code Alliance, are suited to form the next government. They head tomorrow to Kisumu to woo more voters. Masi Kandiye, KTN 64 Stadium, Uasin Gishu County.
And still on the vote hunting mission, and the Jubilee Alliance is at the coast where they pitched camp in Kilifi County. They criticized Prime Minister Raila Odinga and Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka for failing in their leadership to transform the country. Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta says the track record of the two long-serving politicians was wanting. Samugina reports.
The gloves are off in the war of words between the Jubilee Alliance and the CORD coalition. Jubilee is at the coast for a vote-hunting mission combing through Malindi, Kilifi and Mutwapa. The Alliance presidential candidate blasted the leadership of Prime Minister Raila Odinga and Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, saying despite their long stay in government, they have nothing to show for it.
Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka sasa karibu agonge miaka 30 ndani ya serikali. Yeye mwenyewe ndio anasimama kusema si yeye amekuwa ndani ya serikali. Sasa kama yeye amekuwa miaka 30 na mimi na Ruto pamoja hatujafikisha 7, nani angekuwa ameleta suluhisho? Ni mimi au ni yeye? Raila Odinga amekuwa waziri katika serikali ya Moi, amekuwa waziri katika serikali ya kwanza ya Kibaki, amekuwa waziri mkuu kwa miaka 5. Bosi yangu wa kunitawala. Kama kuna mtu ambaye angekuwa wakulete suluhisho, ni mimi au ni yeye?
Wao wenyewe walikuwa wananitafuta mimi, wanatafuta Uhuru, ati nyinyi watu hamuna hatia, mumedhulumiwa, hawa watu hawafai, njooni mtuunge mkono. Lakini saa ile tumesema hapana, nyinyi mtuunge mkono, wakasema ati sisi ni tumeshtakiwa, ni washtakiwa. Sasa when did they discover that we were suspects?
Uhuru said collectively with his running mate William Ruto, they have been in government for less than 10 years and don't bear the burden of failing the country. The Jubilee leaders say they should be audited at the end of their tenure if elected president, promising infrastructure and socio-economic development.
Muungano wetu ni muungano wa kutafuta suluhisho na suluhisho za kudumu kwa shida ambazo tuko nazo.
The Jubilee coalition is ready on day 1 to begin to implement our agenda to eliminate poverty in our country, to give opportunity to millions of young people so that they can contribute their talent, their knowledge, their expertise in transforming our country into a modern world-class economy that caters for all its citizens.
CORD coalition third principal Moses Wetangula was under fire over his recent remarks that branded the Jubilee leadership as a bunch of corrupt fellows.
Wetangula ule ni mtu ohehae, na yule mtu hakuna haja ya kumzungumzia mtu ambaye hana maana. Anaongea maneno ambaye hajui. Waswahili wanasema nyani haoni kundule.
Jubilee heads to Changamwe and other parts of Mombasa County Sunday. Samogina, KTN.
And still on the campaigns, and the confident Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi has hit out at his opponents, alleging that they are running divisive campaigns, saying the Amani coalition would turn things around if elected during the March 4th general election. Speaking while on a campaign tour in Baringo, the Amani coalition flag bearer, accompanied by his running mate Jeremiah Kioni, New Ford Kenya leader Eugene Wamalwa, and KANU chairman Gideon Moi, reiterated that Western Kenya would vote as a bloc for the party and deliver the victory. Eric Njoka reports.
Mudavadi was steadfast on his promise to the residents who turned out for the Amani campaign rally in Baringo and its environs, stating that he was ready to face the Coalition for Reform and Democracy and Jubilee Alliance despite the two coalitions operating from polarized standpoints.
Mimi Bwana Mudavadi, lengo langu si kulipisha kisasi. Sina hasira na mtu yeyote. Siasa yangu haijakuwa siasa ya matusi kwa mtu yeyote. Mimi nataka niunganishe wa Kenya. Wale wako na hasira upande huu na upande huu tuwapoeshe.
Jeremiah Kioni, who was earlier this week chosen as Mudavadi's running mate, said that his acceptance of the position was informed by the need to look beyond tribes to foster peace and harmony in the country. KANU chairman Gideon Moi, who was recently nominated to run for the Baringo senatorial seat, had his promises set on transforming the region. First, by purchasing a chopper that would be used to curb the never-ending cattle rustling menace in the county.
Tumepata shida na matabu. Wakati tutapata hii kiti, Mungu akipenda, ile kitu ambayo tutafanya ya kwanza, tuhakikishe tutakuwa na helikopta ambayo inakaa county. So tabu ikitokea, askari naingia helikopta, wanaenda rapid deployment, so haraka sana.
Mudavadi, who completes his 5-day campaign off the Rift Valley on Monday, is expected to present his nomination papers to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission on Tuesday. Eric Njoka, KTN.
Well, let's let politics rest and look at something that is related to it in one way or another and is a concern. All those campaigns are taking place barely 30 days to the general election, in which Kenyans will get a new president under the new constitution. But to many, the 4th of March is looked at with a lot of apprehension. Reason being, the last election in 2007 rewrote Kenya's history and almost ground the country to a halt. Kiambaa in Eldoret witnessed some of the worst cases of violence, and for survivors, it has been 5 years of reflection and prayer that we should never go through that again in 2013. Tonight, we revisit what happened through the eyes of one of them. Take a look.
The quiet home of 60-year-old Beatrice Wanjiru was not so quiet 5 years ago when neighbor turned against neighbor in Kiambaa area of Eldoret.
Kama vile sasa mimi ninapikia nje. Na nilikuwa na jikoni yangu, sina pesa ya kununua mabati, ati nijenge jiko.
An election season that went sour, losing not only property but the father of her 9 children. This is her story.
Kuangalia nyuma hivi, manyumba inasomeka, ni duru. Tuko kwa kanisa saa hiyo. Kanisa imeungua. Imeungua. Nikasema asante, sio neno. Nilikata ni majani hivi, bishi kama ile. Nikasema unisamehe, unisamehe sisi. Ninaenda nikifanya hivyo na nimeshika nini? Mtoto mkono hivi.
But things have changed here, she tells me. They and their neighbors are living in peace.
Tujasikia ati iko nini. Hapana. Hata hakuna mtu anakuja kuuliza unafanya nini ama nini. Mimi nafikiri iko amani hapa kwetu.
Her sentiments seen during the recent party nominations in Uasin Gishu County, where different communities sat together in halls, waiting patiently for results, regardless of the party or aspirant they were supporting. What may be seen as a sign that the region once dubbed a violence hotspot will do the same during the general election. Some regions, however, witnessed violence.
Hao wanashindwa na kujua ni kitu gani wanafanya. Wanashindwa na kujua ni kitu gani wanafanya. Kama mimi ningewauliza wakuwe na utulivu kwao, sababu wakiwa na shida kama yenye ilipata sisi, ujue watakaa kwa hema kama vile tulikaa miaka hiyo yote. Watakaa kwa hema, na shida ya hema ni ugonjwa na mateso mingi na njaa. Hawa watu wajiuliza ni kitu gani wafikiria ni kitu gani wanafanya.
Stories like this one for Beatrice Wanjiru are echoed in almost every part of the country, and for Beatrice and many others hope that such stories about loss of lives and property will remain in the past, and come March 4th, they will tell new stories, different stories, stories about peace and hope. Mercy Kandie, KTN, Kiambaa, Uasin Gishu County.
All right, let's take a closer look at that story by Mercy Kandie, and of course she's looking at the experience of one woman and what happened to her in 2007. Let's bring in Dr. Frank Njenga, our psychologist, to help us understand what is going on even as we head towards the next general election. Many thanks for joining us on KTN.
My great pleasure.
Well, you've looked at that story by Mercy and you've listened to the recount of what really happened in 2007 to Beatrice. Do you really think Kenya has healed after the 2007 post-election violence?
There are two levels.
Yes.
The first level is the individual, and the second level is the nation as a whole. Our view as mental health specialists is that one has to be very careful about extrapolating from the individual to the society. That individual will continue to suffer the trauma, the psychological trauma of her experiences, literally for the rest of her life, very much as the Mau Mau veterans are suffering today. We as a nation have a chance, but we have a chance only for as long as we do this one right. If we get this particular election that is coming to us right, as a nation, we will experience success as a nation, and we have a reasonable chance of moving on and saying, yes, we did it. Yes, indeed, we have succeeded. We must win this one as a nation.
But where are we really in the healing process?
As a nation, I think not far enough. And I say not far enough because I have with great trepidation watched what happened at the primaries.
Yes, that is actually a concern, Dr. I'll actually be bringing you back to that because there are some clips I'll play for you which to any Kenyan would be disturbing.
I am disturbed. We are disturbed. We do not yet seem to have learned that acts of selfishness, me, myself, and I, at the political level, are what is ailing our nation. We have failed to put this country first. I believe, I pray that this country will come first one day, and when we put Kenya before our individual and personal rights, we will have crossed the Rubicon.
Well, you're worried because we are not yet where we are supposed to be. So then what are the consequences of not dealing with what happened in 2007?
Bloodshed. Bloodshed. For as long as the people vying for positions of president want to arrive at the position of being president for their personal gain, for as long as the governor wants to be governor for their own personal gain, or member of parliament, or county representative, then this country is in trouble. I think the declaration we are looking for as Kenyans is a declaration to the effect that Kenya comes first, and I, as president, governor, senator, come second.
We still have a long way to go before we get
have,
there.
in my view, a long way to putting Kenya first.
Well, you talked about the nominations, the party primaries, and if what was witnessed in some parts of the country during the party primaries is anything to go by, then we have not learned from the post-election violence of 2007. The aftermath of the nomination exercise told the story of a people who have forgotten everything that happened then and raised fears that there are people who would still walk the same path come March 4th, 2013. This is what the country saw during the nominations. Right, we're in studio with Dr. Frank Njenga looking at the 2007 post-election violence and sort of taking stock of what we can expect in 2013 as the country heads towards the next general election. So we have talked about the healing process and where we are, and you're clearly uncomfortable about where the country is. Taking a look at the picture that we have just seen of what happened at the primaries, are we sort of looking at symptoms of post-traumatic stress in a way?
At the national level, yes. And you must allow me to weep together with my fellow Kenyans. And allow me to weep and to pray for our presidential candidates, governors, senators, everybody. And to say this, because it is true, that until we look at those pictures there and accept and acknowledge that Kenya is greater than any one of us, including you and myself, and all the presidential candidates, we will witness those scenes and we will suffer at a national level the equivalent with the post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a tragedy without measure.
But help me to understand this. Is it that Kenyans just did not learn? Is it ignorance?
Kenyans learned. I think the ordinary Kenyan has learned, has experienced the pain. Mothers and fathers and children have learned.
But what are we seeing at the
We are seeing politicians in Kenya at their very best. It's me, myself, and I. I will bribe you, I will corrupt you, I will harass you, I will bend you, because I'm a politician.
I can do what I want.
I will do with you what I want. That, I think the politician in this country, and I'm talking about right across the political divide, not across alliances, are children of the same mother. And I think we as Kenyans must teach them all, irrespective of party, irrespective of alliance, the lesson of their life. Subject them to one test. Who comes first, Kenya or you? If I judge you as president or governor that you think you come before Kenya, I must reject you. And I don't care who you are.
Okay. Let's go back to Beatrice, the lady in Kiamba, and looking at what happened at the primaries and the chaos that were witnessed. Talk me through what goes through the mind of someone who went through the post-election violence, and now they're looking back and seeing a reflection of that. What happens to them?
They get flashbacks, they get avoidance, they get nightmares, they get anxiety attacks, they get panic attacks, and at the very worst, they get into states of very severe depression, some of whom, and I will not talk about the individual, I will talk about the generality of it, they could end up killing themselves. And they will kill themselves, they might kill themselves, by turning violent against society or against themselves because of states of total and complete hopelessness and helplessness. That is real, that happens to real human beings, and that is what I'm talking about at the national level. It is serious and it can be catastrophic.
Before I let you go, can we fix this, Dr.
I think we can. And I think we can. And I think the way we will fix this is by telling our brother, you see, after all, and this is the reality and the tragic reality, all these politicians who want to be presidents and governors and senators are your brothers and my sisters. They are accessible to you and I. We go to the same churches, we go to the same clubs, we marry their girls and their sons marry each other. They're real people. They all, if you cut them, they bleed. I think their mothers and their brothers and their sisters must talk to them by day and by night in churches and in mosques and everywhere else and tell them, Kenya is greater than your coalition. Kenya is greater than you.
So in essence, the problem are the leaders. We need to put pressure on the leaders.
We have the responsibility of telling our leaders that we love them very much, all of them, but Kenya is greater than all of them put together.
Dr. Frank Njenga, psychologist, talking to us about the Kenyan situation just a month to the general election. Many thanks for joining us on KTN Prime. Of course, we look forward to speaking to you as we look for a way to make this country heal before we get there.
My great pleasure.
Right, you're watching KTN Prime, and just ahead, Red Cross helps Warrington Saturday Night Live. Many thanks for staying with us this far. Now, the Kenya Red Cross Society has brokered a peace deal between the two warring communities in the Tana Delta. Members of the Pokomo and Orma communities have signed a memorandum of understanding where they have agreed to cease all hostilities. The communities have also asked the government to arrest and charge those who have been funding militia through arms supplies to fund violence.
Tana Delta has been a scene of intermittent clashes between members of the Pokomo and Orma communities. The warring communities have engaged in an orgy of revenge attacks since August last year, leaving at least 200 people dead and over 4,000 households torched. Communities in Tana Delta are now ready to embrace peace through a deal brokered by the Kenya Red Cross Society. Red Cross officials say over 34,000 people have been displaced by the clashes, forcing them to live in camps for the internally displaced.
Mkulima ni mkulima, mfugaji ni mfugaji, ni kitu gani kinafanya muwe wakimbizi? Sisi pia tumechoka kugawa chakula.
Residents of Tana Delta expressed optimism that peace will prevail in the area and asked the government and other agencies to facilitate their peace efforts.
Ikiwa pesa ya kununulia chakula hatuna, ile AK-47 tumeinunua na nini? Hii inamaanisha kwamba kuna watu ambao wanatununulia hizi silaha kwa sababu kijana ambaye amemaliza shule ana deni ya 30,000 na nyumbani anamiliki GBMG, amechukua wapi hizi pesa za kununulia ile general purpose machine gun? Tunasema wale wanaotufadhili kuleta hizo silaha, serikali iwatafute.
Tunataka hizo mashule zifunguliwe immediately, kisha kusiweko na kuwa ati huyu mtoto wa Orma asisome hapa, huyu ni mtoto wa Pokomo asisome hapa.
Tuungane pamoja sisi wamama wa Pokomo na wa Orma, shughuli zetu zianze kurudi kama kawaida.
The government has deployed security officers from the National Police Service to enforce peace in Tana Delta. But armed militia from the two communities have often dodged the police and attacked unsuspecting villagers. 2 weeks ago, 2 pupils were killed during a raid at Kibusu village. Indeed, tension was still high in the area. The government has assured residents it will provide them with adequate security.
Serikali naipenda watu ya Tana Delta na wanataka usalama ikuje, na tutajaribu na tutaweza na tutafanya. Niko na chopa helicopter ambao hiyo helicopter ni yenu. Tutaingia pamoja na kutafuta mahali vijana walificha bunduki ama namna gani.
The task force that was constituted to investigate the Tana Delta clashes is yet to present its report to the president. In fact, Justice Grace Nzioka, who is chairing the probe, was attacked this week at her Nairobi home. But she was unharmed. Investigators who are not authorized to speak to media suspect the attackers may have wanted to grab and cut away crucial findings on Tana Delta clashes that could be in Lady Justice Nzioka's possession. Patrick Amimo, KTN, Saturday Night.
Of course, great news, putting in mind the bloodshed that has been witnessed in the recent months in Tana Delta. Let's now bring in Abbas Gulet, the Secretary General of Kenya Red Cross, to understand just how this deal was brokered and what it's all about. Many thanks for joining us on KTN Saturday Night Live. You actually got to a point where you got these two communities to sign a deal.
Yes, and although it's a first stage and initial stage, the important thing was to bring them together, and it's not been an easy process, but I think they themselves were ready. Because they're tired, they're fatigued, and for almost 6.5 months they've been at each other's throat. Their children have been not in school, kids have been killed, people are IDPs, people who are reasonably well off before this conflict. But the leaders, about 3 weeks ago, the two leaders from the different communities, the Honorable Mungatana, Dansan Mungatana, and Hussein Dado, called me and asked me that they wanted, if as Red Cross we could provide them with a facility where they could meet. And each of them was able to bring other colleagues of theirs to join them. So we had a meeting on one Saturday in Nairobi, and where they basically announced at this level that they were ready to say no to violence and yes to peace. Followed the following Monday, the government under the Ministry of Internal Security, there was a meeting chaired by the minister and government heads of agencies who also sat with the entire leadership of the Greater Tana County. And at that meeting, they also agreed to say no to violence and yes to peace. And it was agreed they will go down to the ground, now start talking to the communities.
So this actually started from the leaders?
It started from the leaders.
Okay, great. But then help us to understand, because there's a lot of opinions about what really was the problem in Tana.
Yes.
What was it?
Well, what we have had, Linda, you'd find that like many other parts of Kenya, over the last 20 years, there has always been a pre-election violence and not post-election, except in 2008. So Tana has had that experience. Every 5 years prior to the election, there will be ethno-politics-related conflict, which would not be to the extent that this has seen this last year and this early this year. It's something that's totally out of the norm for them. But it is said it's politics. Politicians would tell you no. You are told it's land, they will tell you it's no. They'll tell you it is resource to do with water and grazing of animal and farms. And all this put together is all linked to, and all of them play a role. What we then realized when we went to the ground was that on the ground, people were not ready. People were very upset and very angry, that the leaders hadn't gone down to talk to them. So what we did was to spend the last 10 days really talking to the community itself, ordinary Pokomos, ordinary Ormas, and the leaders. What we learned from them, we brought elderly men who gave us their views. We brought each of them separately. We brought women, they told us their views. We brought young people who are the fighters, and they told us their views. Then we cascaded all the way to a level where we now have 15 and 15 from Pokomo, 15 from Orma, 5 men, 5 women, 5 youth, 15, 30 of them. We then brought the other communities, their neighbors, the Wata, the Muea, Malakote, and Warde to join them. What they told us was also something that really was shocking, to say that they also had no confidence in the local administration.
Yes, because that was really a big problem. But is that the same scenario on the ground?
Well, the good thing is we went and talked to the government. We talked to the head of public service and PS also for internal security of some of the allegations being made against the, provincial administration. And what the government has done is they have taken decisive action, and people have been transferred because they're being accused of corruption, and a lot of things have been said about them. The same thing also with the security agents. And I'm also extremely happy that the new Inspector General of Police was able to get a new operation commander, someone very experienced. For the first time, he's been resourced. He has a helicopter with him. He has extra investigators with him. He has even lawyers with him.
So they're actually facilitating everything.
They've been totally facilitated. And the meeting yesterday was culmination of all these things coming together, where we took leaders from Nairobi, went down with us to Malindi, and we brought the ones from grassroots to Malindi, hence the meeting yesterday, which was attended by roughly about 100 people, and hence the signing of the first initial MOU between these two communities.
All right. Yeah. All right. Abbas Gulai, Secretary General of Red Cross, many thanks for speaking to us. Of course, he's been telling us about the peace deal that has now been signed between the two warring communities in Tana Delta. All hopes are that those two communities will maintain peace as we look for a long-term solution to sort this out. Now, the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examination is often perceived as an exam for young people with lofty dreams and ambitions. But as it emerges, it is also a chance for older people to broaden their perspectives. 57 adult learners in Nakuru sat the examination in Nakuru and cited the need to keep up with technology or fight off discrimination as reasons why they returned to the classroom. KTN's Wilkis Tanyabwa now reports.
In December, hundreds of thousands of students across the country sat their Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examinations, among them a most unlikely group of much older learners. For this group of candidates, just sitting the examination is a dream fulfilled.
Ilikuwa experience nzuri kwa sababu kwa mara ya kwanza I felt ndani yangu ya kwamba sasa nimeingia katika daftari za Kenya kati ya wale watu wamesoma, ya kwamba I have my index number now with the Kenya National Examination Council.
The Mugiri family is awaiting the results of 3 family members. James Mugiri's daughter sat the exam, as did his grandson, and in the fulfillment of a dream he had held close for years, Mugiri sat the exam with them. In 1980, James dropped out of school while in standard 6 for lack of fees.
Ingawa tulikuwa tunalipa pesa kidogo sana, shilingi 32 kwa term, lakini ilikosa. Hata uniform sikuweza kupata, nilikuwa natembea na uniform ambayo iko na viraka.
In 1993, James would secure a job at the Nakuru Municipal Council as an enforcement officer. But without the requisite academic qualifications, he would miss out on several promotions. This and the feelings of inadequacy he battled as a preacher at a local church finally led him to enroll at an adult learning center.
Kuna washiriki wangu ambao wako na degree, wao wengine ni doctors, na mimi sija kitu.
And he stuck with it even when the going got tough.
Akitoka kazini alikuja akiwa mchovu sana, anabeba bagi inaenda hivi mpaka hata nini shonda moja ikawa inaenda hivi. Nikamwambia pole sana. Anakuja ninamtoa bagi tu, nashukuru kwa sababu iko na vitabu mingi sana.
Across Nakuru town, George Karaoke and his wife of 36 years, Emily Njeri, are also counting the hours until the education minister releases their results. 62-year-old George and 52-year-old Emily have brought up 4 children, started a successful business, and sat their KCPE together. While George yearned to join the world of the technology survey, for Emily, who left school in Standard 4, it would be the fear of sticking out like a sore thumb and being discriminated against that would prompt her to take up the classes.
Nilichukia hili jina linaitwa Eritris, ya kwamba huyu mama ni Eritris, hajui chochote. Hata saa zingine unaambiwa uandike kitu, sign kitu, itakubidi sasa uweke kidole. Nikaona si mzuri, afadhali nikiandika najiandikia mimi mwenyewe.
In Nakuru town, adult education classes are conducted at the district education office at no cost to the learners who can make their own schedules.
Kaonekana mmoja atakuwa kienda asubuhi na mwingine anaenda afternoon.
But even then, many are reluctant to enroll for fear of ridicule. So for the older learners, sitting the examination is an accomplishment. They don't dream of becoming pilots or lawyers or engineers, but having experienced the feeling of accomplishment, they yearn for more.
Those others who cannot be able to go, others are sponsored by those very wishers. Others who cannot be able to go to those secondary schools and they have performed well, we are taking them in one informal secondary class.
Nitatosheka wakati na mimi nitasikia nimeitwa Dr. Mogire. Yes, that's my hiyo ndio vision ya.
Their dreams hinged on the results that shall be announced on Monday, results that may open more doors to these adult learners for whom education no longer means just a slip of paper but a lifetime accomplishment that puts them at par with their peers. Wilkes Anyabwa, KTN in Nakuru.
Great accomplishment there by the elderly. You're watching Saturday Night Live. Many thanks for staying with us this far. We're taking a short break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. .800 meters, David Rudisha may drop Australia as his preferred season opening destination and opt for a different approach to the season. The world record holder also revealed what President Mwai Kibaki shared with him early this week.
The world champion in 800 meters and world record holder over the distance, David Rudisha, has plenty of time out of training, at least for now, to engage in promotional engagements in his capacity as a brand ambassador for Procter & Gamble. It was also a welcome break from his rigorous training.
Because most of the time we are out there training or we are in our camp, but at least at the end of the day it's good also to be part of them and to be part of the society and come and to socialize with them and to take photos, and they feel really great.
The Olympic champion is set to make drastic changes to his training and traveling regime this year. It isn't clear where and when Rudisha will first compete in 2013, but it will not likely be in Australia.
We are still looking forward to see what we can do best this year, to see also maybe we can have a change or we can do something else.
David Rudisha officially concluded his Olympic responsibilities by taking the Kenyan team back to State House to return the national flag to President Mwai Kibaki, and also got a chance for a chat with the president.
I was very happy, because of the performance that we did in London, of course, winning the gold medal and breaking the world record at the same event. It was such a great achievement, and he was very happy. And Mzee was telling me, to do.
David Rudisha. The Kenya Sports Personality of the Year is likely to scale down his competitive appearances and races this year in order to avoid burnout before the World Championships in Athletics in Moscow. Sadiq Shaban, KTN Sports.
54 drivers will be out in the plains of Kajiado and Olepolos tomorrow for the first round of the Kenya National Rally Championships. The organizers have cleared the drivers after a day-long inspection of the rally cars and other safety requirements of the event that heads back to Kajiado after 6 months.
Nafikiri tumejiandaa vilivyo, gari tumeibomoa yote, tukaijenga hadi last minute mpaka tusema leo rally ifika mapema, lakini ndio hivyo hivyo. So yeah, tunahisi tuko tayari.
I hear the route is a little bit rough, dusty, but it's normal Kajiado rallying, and it's nothing that we haven't done before. The routes we all know, so we'll see how it goes.
We're going to make sure we'll have a helicopter on standby in Kajiado full time for every rally. At the service park we'll have a helicopter now this year. We will have ambulances at started points on the route.
The Kenya Cup Rugby tournament has indeed proved to be anybody's tourney this time round, as the household name in the game, Queens, are far from the title. KCB and Nakuru RFC squared it out today. Nakuru RFC proved they had not to crack at their backyard, but KCB retained top spot by losing by less than 7 points and aggregate. KCB 37 points and Nakuru have 37 points.
Kenya Cup Rugby weekend went down in various towns in the country. The highlight match of the day was Nakuru taking on other big guns, KCB in Nakuru. Today was indeed a clear testimony the tournament is a tough one. Mean Machine took on Nodis at their backyard, but it was too hard to break the enemy's defense. They won the match 15-11. Defending champions Harlequins once again showed the blunt side as they were well beaten by student side Strathmore 31-20. Nakuru, Calvin, Moita and Siguta were instrumental in the 2017 win over table leaders KCB. The Bankers are still on top after less than 7 points defeat. In other results, Mwamba continued with the consistency as they punished Black Blood 40-23. Western Bulls beat Homeboys 22-21.
Well, the Kenya Premier League does not reward coaches sufficiently, and that is the reason coaches are on a high rotation in the league. Former Sofapaka coach Stewart Holt made this claim just 2 months after heading back to Tanzania to take up a coaching job with Tanzanian side Azam.
He arrived into the country with a lot of pomp as he took over the reins of Sofapaka, the 2009 Kenya Premier League champions. However, months later, Stewart Holt left the country in a half. We caught up with him as he prepared his Tanzanian side Azam FC to face local league sides in the build-up matches. And his reply was more of an eye-opener and food for thought for local club owners and football administrators.
With Azam, you know, there's never any problems financially, you know. Azam are very, very good payers.
He insists one of the reasons that took him back to Azam was the team's plans and the fact that the ice cream makers could be the next big thing in the region.
Azam could be the next TP Mazembe of Africa. If you see our training facilities and you see what the club are doing, you know, we're opening our own TV station and, you know, Azam TV, and the club really could be giants in African football.
Deep down his heart, he has a soft spot for the Kenya Tusker Premier League. However, he believes a lot needs to be done before the league can claw back its lost glory. One of them being investing in the clubs and the coaches.
The problem at the minute is salaries. In Kenya, they don't pay. The coach at Azam and Simba and Yanga would get a lot more money than the coach at AFC Leopards, Gor Mahia or Sofapaka. You know, and that's at the minute. And also that's why a lot of your Kenyan players would get a lot more money playing in Tanzania. And
Azam FC was established in 2009. The first major target was to get the best players who will help the now established Azam FC to gain promotion. That dream was realized as Azam FC joined the top flight football in 2008-2009 season. With their deep pockets, they have managed to employ amongst the best talents within the region. With Tuskers, Joaquin Zatudo and Sofapaka Zamfrimiano amongst their new additions last year. In the 2011-2012 season, they finished in a historical second place, and the team qualified for the 2013 CAF Confederation Cup. Reporting for KTN Weekend Prime Sports, I'm Hassan Juma.
Ivory Coast booked their place in the Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinals by handsomely beating Tunisia. The Elephants deservedly took the lead when Javino Clinckley finished off a superb 1-2 with Lassina. Manchester City midfielder Yaya Toure made it 2-0 with a stunning curler into the far corner from 20 yards. And substitute Didier Yakonen put further gloves on the Ivorians' victory when he rolled the ball home with virtually his first touch. Algeria and Togo are currently playing in the last Group D match.
Great chance and smashes it home. The current African Player of the Year, second goal in his second game. Finishes off this match now, surely. Côte d'Ivoire, a 2.
Nothing rewards like a Guinness. Guinness, reach for greatness.
Weather forecast brought to you by Motin Doom Power Guard.
The ultimate cockroach killer.
All right, so that's where we leave it. Many thanks for watching Saturday Night Live. Sleep well. I'm Linda Ogutu.